Good evening. Welcome to the Round Hill Association 2021 Greenwich Candidates Debate. My name is Brendan DeSimone. I'm a backcountry resident and an executive committee member of the Round Hill Association. The Round Hill Association is a 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit and nonpartisan organization, founded in 1942. Our role in this evening's debate is to assist the community in learning more about the candidates equally. We do not endorse any one candidate. I'd like to start out the evening by introducing the candidates for town clerk and tax collector's offices. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. My fellow Round Hill Association board member, Jane Sprung, will follow up to set the stage for the balance of the event. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jackie Butkins and Molly Saleeby, candidates for town clerk, followed by our candidates for tax collector, Trevor Crowe and Heather Smeriglio. Jackie, you're up first.
Good evening, I'm Jackie Butkins. I'm delighted to be with the Round Hill Association tonight to speak about the town clerk's office and why I am the best person to run the office going forward. I'm a third-generation Greenwich native, a graduate of the Greenwich Public School System, and a college graduate. Professionally, I'm a full-time realtor here in town. All of you have probably needed something from the town clerk's office over the years. That's not a surprise. The town clerk's office handles a wide variety of tasks. I consider it to be the gateway to town hall. Just a quick synopsis, the clerk's office handles documents, lots and lots of documents, birth certificates, death certificates, marriage licenses, absentee ballot distribution, governmental notices, and support for the RTM. But one of its biggest tasks is handling property transactions, buying, selling, gifting, everything involved in real estate. As a realtor in Greenwich for over 20 years, I am the only candidate who has actually used the office on an almost daily basis. Having been a customer of the town clerk's office, I know what the other customers want. I know what good service looks like because I demand it, and therefore will provide that service and make it better as town clerk. With my work with the clerk's office, I have cultivated wonderful working relationships with the most frequent users of the office, real estate attorneys, title searchers, and fellow realtors. I know what they need and I know what needs to be improved. There is no experience equal to that of the hands-on dealings that I have accumulated. I am committed to continue the modernization by enhancing technology, incorporating additional innovations, and ensuring that the Greenwich Town Clerk's office is on the cutting edge, all while maintaining the welcoming and kind customer service that the office excels at. I am running because I love our town. I want to build on the success of our clerk's office and make it the best for everyone in our town. I have the experience, the deep knowledge of our town, and the perfect temperament to deal with the community at large. Once again, thank you for your time, consideration, and support. I ask humbly for your vote on November 2nd so I can serve the town that I love.
Thank you, Jackie. Next up is Molly Saleeby.
I'm Molly Saleeby. 2 years ago, when I first ran for town clerk, my then opponent, the now 30-year incumbent, was unavailable for debate. I was disappointed again this year when I learned there wasn't to be a clerk's debate and therefore no opportunity to engage with my now opponent, the incumbent's daughter. So I am especially grateful to the Round Hill Association for the chance to speak to you tonight. Thank you. I'm running again because I firmly believe I'm the right person to lead the office now and that Greenwich deserves and needs a change, and I am that change. Simply, the office hasn't kept up with technology. I will innovate and implement efficiencies for a more satisfying customer experience. I will bring more services online like many of our peer towns. I've consulted numerous clerks around our state and the Connecticut Town Clerks Association, and I've repeatedly heard, I'm surprised Greenwich isn't already doing this. I've talked with many of you, the great residents of our town, at your doors, and you've asked for progress. I will bring it. The number one role of the clerk should be to provide exemplary service for all. Helping people is what I do best, and it brings me joy. I received a company award for outstanding client service. I have a public service heart and mind and a proven volunteer track record. I'm an involved RTM member, vice chair of District 8, and on the Budget Overview Committee. The town clerk is secretary of the RTM and vital to its successful functioning. My opponent is not on RTM. My professional background includes work at Channel 13 Public Television, Time Magazine, and the premier law firm Skadden Arps. I'm a graduate of Mount Holyoke College. I spent my junior year at Dartmouth. I'm a product of Greenwich Public Schools, along with my many siblings, cousins, and nieces and nephews. My family has been active in this community for over 50 years. I love my hometown. I ask for everyone's vote, Republicans, Democrats, unaffiliated. I will be a clerk for all. There is choice. Choose qualifications and experience. Vote for the change you deserve. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Molly. Next up is Trevor Crowe, candidate for tax collector.
I need that button though. Thank you, Round Hill Association, for having me here this evening. Running for tax collector on the Democratic slate is an honor and a privilege for me. One of my greatest concerns right now is the precarious state of our democracy. I was appalled by the violence in our nation's capital on January 6th, and it was a call to action for me. The tax collector plays an essential role in maintaining the quality of life in our beautiful town. We need tax revenues to pay for teachers, firefighters, and police, and to manage all the services in our community. We all have an obligation to pay our taxes. Those of us who do pay our taxes fully and on time know the financial and emotional impact of the cost of living here. We each pay believing that other taxpayers are paying their fair share too. The current tax collector has allowed 9 delinquent tax accounts to run out of their 15-year statute of limitations, making those accounts uncollectible. Is that fair to those of us who do pay fully and on time? When I am tax collector, I will keep Greenwich residents and the Board of Estimate and Taxations apprised of delinquent tax accounts and the steps my office is taking to collect on them. My priority is being transparent with Greenwich taxpayers, working to create timely reports and protocols to collect late taxes. I earned an MBA from Harvard Business School and worked in sales and trading on Wall Street. I went back to school and earned a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. Having worked on Wall Street, as a therapist and as an executive coach, I bring a unique combination of skills to the office of tax collector, understanding both the emotional and financial aspects of the job. Finally, Greenwich residents can feel safe visiting me at the tax collector's office. Just as paying taxes is essential for the common good, the same holds true for being fully vaccinated, which is why I made that choice back in March. I would appreciate your vote. Thank you. I am Trevor Crowe, Democrat for tax collector.
Thank you, Heather. Last up for tax collector, Heather Smiriglio.
Good evening, Round Hill Associates and residents of Greenwich. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you tonight. My name is Heather Smiriglio. I am running for my second term as your tax collector, and I thank God for the ability to do so. I am a third-generation Greenwich native. My grandfather worked for the town as a foreman in the tree department. My mom retired as an account clerk from the Parks and Rec Division. Love of my community and service to others are of the utmost importance to my family. I worked in the banking industry for 33 years, starting my career in 1980 as a teller with Greenwich Federal Savings and Loan. In 2013, I switched gears and began working for the town as an account clerk in the tax office. I immediately enrolled in courses with the Connecticut Tax Collectors Association and, upon completion, became certified by the state of Connecticut as a municipal collector in 2016. I was elected in 2019 as the first certified tax collector and also the first female in the town's history. A few months into my term, we were hit with the COVID-19 pandemic. I was able to work with the town's RTM to put into place a 90-day deferment program, helping many residents and business owners by extending the tax due date. Despite the delay in payment, I am pleased to report the collection rate of real estate taxes for 2020 was 99.64. Also in March, by instituting a delinquent mailing and working with the town's attorney, I brought in $3 million in back taxes without running a tax sale. This year, I was able to pre-collect $35 million before the July 1st due date, putting the town in one of the best financial positions ever. Above my desk, I have a quote that reads, "Start each day by asking this question: who can I help today?" And that is what I believe is the best way to serve my fellow residents. I humbly ask for your vote on November 2nd. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Thank all of you.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Jane Sprung, Round Hill Association Board Member.
Thank you to the town clerk and tax collector candidates. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jane Sprung, and I serve on the board of the Round Hill Association. We are very pleased to present our selectman and first selectman candidate forum for the upcoming election on November 2nd. We thank the candidates for taking the time to join us this evening. The format tonight is a webinar, and there's no live chat functionality. For your convenience, the debate is also being shown on channel 7924 and live streamed on the YouTube channel. A recording will also be available on the Round Hill Association website. The first selectman and selectman candidates will answer questions separately this evening. Each candidate will give a 2-minute introduction, followed by questions from the moderator. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and if requested, a 30-second rebuttal. This is not a cumulative time format. Timers will provide 30-second warning and time's up. And we ask that everybody please stick to their time allotted. The questions tonight have been submitted by the public and were compiled and reviewed by Republican, Democrat, and independent members of the board. If a question you submitted has not been asked, please reach out directly to the candidates. And we have a little surprise at the end of each segment, where the first selectman and select woman will wrap up with the opportunity to ask each other one question. Each question will be followed by a 2-minute answer. So anyway, I would like to welcome the first selectman up to the podium, and I'll introduce John Conte, president of Round Hill Association, who will moderate the event.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. As president of the Round Hill Association, it's truly my honor and pleasure to present you with the main event this evening, a candidate debate for our all-important selectman's seat. We look forward to a lively and friendly discussion of the questions that have been sent in by our members and by residents. We at the Round Hill Association strive to provide an open and informative event that brings our townspeople together and helps educate and foster a more informed and active, involved community. I also want to thank Brendan DeSimone and Jane Sprung, who chaired this event, and all the hard work they put in to make it run smoothly. And our vice presidents, Nancy Duffy and Patty Azer, for their work also in assisting in the program's operations. Thanks to the Round Hill Association volunteer timers who will be keeping time. And we do plan to keep time strictly monitored, so I would appreciate it if you both watch the clock and bear that in mind when you answer your questions. You'll be given cues as to the time, as with a time's up message. And thanks to Jenny Larkin for assisting with the technical aspects of this, and GCTV for producing the event. Now, to the candidates. I want to welcome you again and wish you good luck. I've gone through the questions, and I did an alphabetical first, second, but I started with the questions and I forgot about your opening comments. So Bill, you will be our first speaker for the opening comments, and then Fred will have our first question. So you have 1 minute to do an introductory opening.
1 minute?
Oh, the opening is 2? The ending
it's
is
2
1.
minutes.
Excuse me, 2 minutes for opening, and then at
I
the
can
end
do
you'll have
1.
another minute. No,
Okay,
2.
I can do 1 or 2.
Go, thank you.
We're very flexible. 2 minutes, all right. First, I want to thank the Round Hill Association for setting up this debate. It's very important that we have an opportunity to talk to the public and they get to see us and listen to us, so they get to know us. I can tell you I'm very familiar with the Round Hill and the backcountry, as Mr. Conti, the moderator, and I actually serve on the board of directors at the Greenwich Audubon. I've done that for 6 years. And by the way, we've just completed the lower barn, and it has a beautiful outdoor patio, and it's rentable. So consider that. I know Augustine's. I had a chat with Augie over the weekend, and he told me that McCoon's are the best apples. So I think that's very important. I wanted to get that out there. I'm familiar with the backcountry because I've done a comprehensive fire study when I was on the RTM. There was a fatal accident on the Merritt Parkway, and I was asked with Joan Caldwell and Jimmy Clifford to do a study of the fire department from soup to nuts. And we did that, and we were awarded a Selectman's Award for that study. I am familiar with the fire department. I have experience in town. You've probably seen my material. I'm served 8 years on the Board of Ed. I served 4 years on the Board of Estimate and Taxation. I served 6 years on the RTM. I was district leader of 6, and I have 18 seconds. Okay, so I have experience in town government. I have experience in my private life as an attorney, a founder of a law firm. I employ about 45 attorneys, and I have 14 seconds. And our priorities are different, which is the real, hopefully we'll get to that issue tonight. Our priorities are different. And I've talked about the schools and maintaining the school system. My opponent has talked about bump outs and developing Greenwich Avenue. There are clear differences in priorities, and my time is over. Thank you very much.
I assure you that it's a long night. You'll have plenty-
All right, good.
You'll have plenty of opportunity to express your thoughts. Thank you. Fred
Thank-
Camillo,
Thank you, John.
2-minute
Good-
opening.
Thank you, John. Good to see you, and thank you to the Round Hill Association and everybody here and my opponent. My name's Fred Camillo. I am a 4th-generation Greenwichite. I have a couple of degrees. I only used one of them briefly as a high school history teacher. I have started a couple of companies, including being a founder and a managing director of Greenwich Recycling, which was led the state, helped Greenwich lead the state in recycling for many, many years. I've been a high school baseball coach, high school basketball coach. I've been in real estate on and off for about 20 years, transactional and management and sales. I've served 11 years as a state representative and was the assistant minority leader in Hartford, where I authored probably a couple dozen bills, not all alone. And the last 2 years, the honor to be first selectman of my hometown. But above all that, public service is my passion. I've done that since I was 19 years old. I served 3.5 terms on the RTM. I was chairman of the Board of Parks and Recreation when we did all of our master plans for the town. I was chairman of the Republican Town Committee. I've served on many boards and commissions, task force and committees here. So as far as the debate tonight, it's Northwest oriented. One of the first things we did is a public-private partnership. And yes, my opponent's right. We have some big differences, and that's one of them. One of the first things I did was a public-private partnership. We partnered with the Greenwich Land Trust, and we acquired 73 acres in the backcountry northwest section so that we can all enjoy that. Also, GEM Station 4 has been lingering for 6 years. We've got that done. Thank you, RTM, for approving that last night. So as I have 5 seconds left, there's a few more things I'd like to get in about the backcountry, but we'll have some more time. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the debate.
Okay, Fred, appreciate that. And we'll get on to our questions now. And our first question is on the subject of finance and public-private partnerships. And so this question goes to Fred, which will be followed same amount of time to Bill, and then each will have a rebuttal of 30 seconds. So Greenwich has seen many public-private partnerships involving the construction of major projects in town. What is your view on the role of these partnerships? When are they appropriate or not appropriate? And do you see them as a key element in future projects?
Yes, thank you for the question. Greenwich has in the past had a hesitancy for them. We've done them in the past, but not that often. I was a member of the Parks Board chairing it when we did the Bentheim, Western Greenwich Civic Center. But we've had plenty in my first 2 years here as first selectman, including last night. We finally got the approval of the RTM, the biggest grant that we've got so far for a public building, $5 million. Thank you to the RTM for overwhelmingly approving that. But if we want to really keep our tax rate low, our mill rate the lowest in the state, and that's a big thing, that's a big draw, but we want to get points on the board, we have citizens that are willing to help us do that. So why wouldn't we? We have $5 million in the bank right now in the books for the Eastern Greenwich Civic Center. We have a chip chart set up, so we're going to knock that down some more. So we hope to get between $5 and $9 million for that. But I would ask, if we did not do that, where would we find that money without raising taxes? right? That was a clear difference in the first debate between my opponent and I. I don't see any problem at all with somebody giving money to the town of Greenwich for the enjoyment of not only the residents right now, but future generations. We need to put points on the board, and that's the new residents moving here. They're picking Greenwich over other places, including some towns that are our neighbors to the north that are really well run and terrific places to live. But they've come to Greenwich. And so it's not just, we just can't say we have low taxes. We have lots of things here. They move here for our schools. They move here for our wonderful park system, for the amenities, the programs we have, the proximity to New York and to Boston. But also, above all, my favorite is the civic involvement in Greenwich is second to none. As a state rep, I visited most of the 169 municipalities in the state of Connecticut, and Greenwich is by far at the top of the list.
No, I got it. Public-private partnerships. Public-private partnerships can be utilized in certain situations. One, to show interest in a project, and two, for a non-essential item. For essential items that we need, such as schools, firehouses, and other things, there should not be public-private partnerships. If essential services are needed, the town should provide them. Last night, you brought to the RTM the gift with a contract, with an agreement of 7 pages that apparently took 90 days to develop, since you knew about the actual donor on June 30th of this year, and it took July, August, and September to draft a 7-page document. Now, I'm not going to go into detail, and the members of the RTM will understand why I will not go into detail, because of the bottom of page 2 of that document, and God forbid I create a controversy. It's planning. We need to plan. You cannot plan and rely on a public-private partnership. You have to plan. You have to set a policy. There's no policy. We have no policy on naming. The Board of Ed has a policy, 7551, I believe it is, and it specifically states when they will use the name, when they will have a name. 53 members of the RTM wanted to adjourn the matter last night so that they could develop a policy. And you pushed them to make a decision on that gift, even though money's not even going to come in until next January or February 15th. It's process, policy, planning. We need to set a policy, and then we need to plan. You cannot plan relying on some donor to come forward and give you $5 million or $2 million or $1 million. If somebody wants to give me a check for $5 million that's free and clear, sure, I'll take it.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, Fred, a 30-second rebuttal.
Sure. I mean, when you get these donations, they're not done in 10 minutes. And certainly, this is the biggest donation. We had the Vendime was 2.15 million. That took years. We did this in less than that. And certainly, as I said last night at the RTM, if people want to have a morals clause put into it going forward, I'm absolutely okay with that. But it was a slowdown tactic by a few people who tried to make it political. Now, this is a donor that lives in town. This is a donor that has their name on a lot of other buildings. They're well known here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. And 30 seconds, Bill.
All right. It's not political. It's policy. It's policy. You set policy, and then you follow the policy. You plan, and you follow the plan. You don't go and say, here's this. Oh, I forgot the policy. Let me go back and get a policy. Okay, we can do that. We'll delay it. It's a delaying tactic. It's not. It's process, which matters. How you govern matters. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Did I get a response?
No, otherwise we go all night.
Yep. Thank you, though. We're going to move on to an easy one, affordable housing. And I mean that facetiously. The goal to create more affordable housing is an important issue involving a complex mix of topics that greatly affects our town. We must increase our stock by over 1,100 units to meet the state's mandate. This law allows developers to circumvent local zoning regulations, making possible much larger buildings with tighter setbacks and much more overall lot coverage than would otherwise be allowed. Bill, please explain your thoughts on this subject and when, if ever, you think we will meet this goal.
In 2 minutes. Sure, no problem. One of the things we've done is gotten the trust fund up. That was approved by the RTM, and that's a good thing because that'll help us in negotiation with developers to hopefully get what we want. The actual law is 830G, which is a state law that requires you to have 10% of affordable housing in your community. The fact of the matter is, Greenwich actually has that 10%. We've already met that number. But there's a requirement that the affordable housing actually be set for 40 years. So the rent has to be set for 40 years, or the price has to be set so that it's always going to be affordable for 40 years. We need to negotiate, assert local control, and say, why don't we have a grandfather clause? We already have 10% in our town. I've walked this town. I've walked this district. I've knocked on doors. And I know that there's 10% affordable housing. I've talked to Margarita Alban. We have it. Now, do we want to make more? Absolutely, we want to make more, but we don't want to affect the character of this town. So we have to do it efficiently. We have to do it proactively. We have to go out to the developers. Most of the developers coming to town live in town. They're part of the town. So I think they'd be very accommodating and work with us to hopefully work on their buildings. Now, this is a planning and zoning issue at the first glance. But if you have a bully pulpit and you can negotiate, and I can't see that because I don't have my glasses.
26 seconds.
26 seconds, okay. Anyway, it's a very complex issue. We have the trust fund, which I think is very important. It'll help us negotiate with the developers. 830G switches the burden of proof for anybody who is not up to date. It used to be that the planning and zoning normally makes the developer prove that this complies with sewer, water, traffic. However, the burden shifts to the town on an 830G project. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred?
Thank you, John. The town does have about 5.5% right now. We do have to get to 10%. We're going to try our best. I'm going to meet with the governor soon about trying to get a moratorium, but it's not his call. It's not that easy to assert local control. I was in the legislature for 11 years. The housing committee is really, made up of membership from urban communities that think the suburban towns are trying to get away with things. I was happy to work with Margarita Alban on the Housing Trust Fund, which was first attempted in 1988. We got it done this year. I also am proud to work with Sam Romeo and Tony Johnson with Greenwich Communities. They've added about 53 new pieces of property that they bought and developed that's helped chip away at that a little bit. But they've also renovated every single complex in town. Armstrong Court, where my grandmother lived, Wilbur Peck, Adams Gardens. They're on their way to making it the best public housing we have in the state. As Ned Lamont said when he came here, and I debated the mayor of New Haven and the head of Desegregate Connecticut, Ms. Bronin and others, and testified to defend local control, and we killed those bills. They passed something that was really watered down. But we worked with Sam, and when we did a plaque unveiling at Armstrong Court, Ned Lamont, and these are his words, he said, "Freddie is right. We don't need Hartford telling us what to do because we're doing the right thing here in Greenwich now." That was Ned Lamont's words, and it was on tape, not mine. But we'll continue to work with our friends in Hartford, but it's going to be a lot harder turning that around unless you change the makeup of the legislature.
Thank you. 30-second, Bill.
I got nothing.
Okay.
We're on the same page. We're trying to get it.
Okay. Very good. We'll move to our next question, which is on the same subject, so we can elaborate a little bit more. So until we meet the required number of affordable housing units, how can we manage the intensive construction impacts on neighborhoods, streetscapes, and the town's infrastructure? That goes to Fred.
That's the part that, another reason why I think 8-30G is a dangerous law. May have been well-intended, but each time you build something and you take away soil and you replace it with impervious surface, you're exacerbating an already bad problem with the flooding. Tonight, when I'm done here, I'm going to go around town again and check out the various areas of town. Last night was another night that I didn't sleep much. It's a problem. It's been a problem since we were flooded out in 1972 by Strickland Brook, and I got 2 more times flooded out in 2007, as did my childhood home. It's a problem. The more we build, right, the more it's going to cause a problem. So I spoke with P&Z and I said, why can't we put get a requirement, a green requirement every time there's a new application? And they're thinking about it. But the last time they did that, they had a lot of unhappy developers and people coming in here. But we're going to work with local officials, and also I'm going to set up a meeting, please God, if it turns out okay, next Tuesday with the governor. Again, he does not control that. It is the legislature, but he does have a bully pulpit. He does have an opinion. He does have influence up there. Luckily, I get along really, really well with my colleagues in Hartford, my former colleagues, even the very, very liberal ones. When I testified on the bills in Hartford, it was like old home week. We get along really well, and there is room for dialogue, but it's tough until you change the makeup of the legislature, and you get more people up from the suburban towns on that housing committee. It's going to be tough, but it's absolutely doable.
Thank you. So Bill, the question to you again, until we meet that housing unit number, how can we manage the intensive construction impacts on neighborhood streetscapes and the town's infrastructure?
It's really to start with the planning and zoning issue. It goes before planning and zoning, and they can, to the extent they can impose certain conditions, they will do so. But it's really the bully pulpit. And we talk about, I want to take off on one of those topics that Mr. Camillo mentioned, which was flooding. One of my focuses is the infrastructure. The first selectman controls the priorities of the capital projects. So the school submits their priorities, the town has their priorities. And the first selectman looks at it and decides where the priorities are going to be. My priorities, it's not just an approval of the Board of Education thing and approval of the town, it's setting priorities. And the priorities in this town need to be the infrastructure. They need to be schools. They need to take care of the issues of flooding. They should not be on bump outs or development of Lower Greenwich Avenue and the economic impact that may have. So if you look at the League of Women Voters guide, you will see a clear difference in what our priorities are. My priorities are school infrastructure, flooding infrastructure. I'm a construction litigator. I represent some of the biggest projects in New York City. And I understand, I have my hard hat, I got my boots, and I got my vest. I'll go with you later. And I understand what flooding is and the problems. One of the new creations we have is permeable surfaces, asphalt. So you can lay down asphalt and it's permeable and the water goes straight down. It doesn't run off. And that's, it's about 20% more expensive, but it's something we should be looking at in town. That's all I have.
Very good. Thank you. Fred, if you'd like a 30-second comment.
Sure. Yeah, my priorities included and still do public safety. And those bump outs are not just to look nice. They actually slow down traffic. They improve sight lines. They decrease the amount of distance that somebody has to make when they're going across the crosswalk there. The last time we had a pedestrian hit on Greenwich Avenue was 2019 in January. And it was right in front of a cop who was directing traffic. The bump outs will work. So it's not just for beautification. It actually is a public safety. That is one of my priorities. But I can't see.
It's
Is
a
that-
stop.
Sorry.
That's a stop sign. Bill, any follow-up?
Quickly, the police are gone now. The police are taken off the avenue. I hope to bring them back in the form of either the special police or school crossing guards, so we have some authority there at the intersections. That's it. That's all I have.
Very good. We're going to touch on that next subject a little bit here because our next topic is police, fire, and safety. So fire safety is a chief concern among many backcountry residents. The Matrix study reported higher response times for the backcountry and Northwest Greenwich residents relative to other parts of town. With the approval of the RTM more than 3 years ago and the completion of the Matrix study, which indicated the need for a backcountry fire station, will you commit to building and staffing a new station, Or do you believe the existing Round Hill Volunteer Fire Station should be expanded to include accommodations for career firefighters along with the volunteers? This goes to Bill.
All right. I did a comprehensive study of the fire department years ago, so I understand the fire department and how it works. Let me give you an analogy, because we do not have the fire protection in the Northwest, as you know. We have a volunteer station. We have 11 volunteers who go to work every day from 9 to 5, 7 to 7, whatever. They're not available during those times. So there is no coverage for Northwest during that time. When they get home at night, yes, there's coverage. Weekends, yes, there's coverage. That's how the volunteers work. So if I was talking to Jim Heavey, the chief of police, and I said, Chief, we got he goes, Kelly, we got 75% of the town covered with police coverage. We just got this area in the Northwest we can't cover with police. But if you give me a couple more cops, I could cover it. There would be no question we would provide the cops. And we have the same situation with the fire department. We have career personnel throughout the town. Other than in the Northwest, we have just volunteers. Now, the volunteers are great. They're wonderful. I've dealt with them. I negotiated with them. But they're not going to be available during the day. Now, I will, and I wrote this up to the Round Hill Association, I'm going to look into, first of all, the $75,000 for a design study for a career and volunteer station was turned down by the BET, the Republican BET. They turned it down. That was going to be a combined career volunteer station. That's what you need up there. You need career there in order to provide the coverage that you're entitled to. And how we do that is we put the two stations together. We do a volunteer and career station. Without that, you don't have the coverage during the day. The Republicans don't want to do it. I'll do it. Simple as that.
Thank you, Bill. Fred?
Okay, it started off with public safety, so that assumes I could rebut the police off the avenue comment that my opponent made. He said that I took the cops off the avenue. There were 2 cops directing traffic for 7 hours a day, Monday through Friday. There are now 6 police officers there, and they have stopped more crime and deterred more crime than ever before. And you could ask Chief Heavey that, and there are statistics on that. So, but going to Round Hill, the response time is over 9 minutes in the Northwest, but it's also over 9 minutes in the Northeast. One of the first things I did when I appointed Joe McHugh, a Greenwich native, 29-year veteran of the New York Fire Department, is we spoke about them putting together the first ever strategic plan. They've done that. They're also looking at implementing several of the 22 suggestions for the Matrix study. Now, 2 years ago, I stood before you at Round Hill and said when the former administration was looking at, fire administration was looking at putting a fire station on the King Street border, which made no sense at all. Because if you draw the circle, you end up really covering White Plains. So I said, if it's going to go somewhere, it made sense to put it at Round Hill. So I've had many, many meetings, not just one to catch up on what's going on there, but I meet with them every week. And they are saying, they're telling me that they can get it down a little bit more. They just bought a lot of the response times in the Matrix, some of the information in the Matrix was flawed. There's no connectivity. So sometimes it doesn't start off right off the bat when they're in the truck. So they lose some timing there. They bought a component. They put it in one of the engines now to see if they could fix that. So they think they're going to knock some time off of the response times in the Northwest and Northeast. My job as the fire commissioner is not just to improve the response time in the Northwest corner. It's to improve response times all over the town. The 67 square miles, 48 of it is landmass. That is what the job of the fire commissioner is supposed to do, and that's what we're working on right now. And I have put money in the budget to see if. Okay.
Sorry, time's up.
Okay.
But you'll have a rebuttal, Bill.
There's no career at Northwest. There's no protection. Until there's career firefighters, you're not going to have protection from 9 to 5 while people are working. You're just not. And the other thing the Matrix study asked for a year ago was an organizational statement as to what's the level of service that you're going to provide for the town. We're still waiting for that statement. It still hasn't been done. It's been a year, and you are the fire commissioner.
So, can I?
Go ahead. Yes, Fred.
So, when I appointed Chief McHugh last year, we went over all this, and he said, Commissioner, give us some time to figure this out. So of course, I'm not going to ram it down their throats and saying, I want something right away. We don't do that. We actually go through the process and I mean, to talk of, this is why people get aggravated with government, right? You run for office and the first thing you say is, if I'm mayor, if I'm first selectman, I'm going to do A, B, and C. Well, no one gets more frustrated coming from the private sector with this pace of government than I do.
Gotcha.
But I could tell you that the fire administration, they're working on something, and the money is in the budget for an architect to see if they can actually house professional staff at Round Hill.
Thank you, Fred. Next
That was
question.
the same money that was turned down by the Republican BET last year.
No, it was not.
Next question.
No, it's
There,
not.
there, there are
Totally
no
different.
longer police stationed at the intersections on Greenwich Avenue. This has been a Greenwich tradition for generations, helping to promote a feeling of safety downtown. Do you support this change, or would you advocate to bring the police officers back to these posts? Fred?
You want to go first?
I'll go. I don't care.
Okay,
I'll go.
kidding, if it's my
Oh.
turn. There was a study in 1938 that said, what a waste of manpower having these cops directing traffic. And they hated it. I only knew 2 cops in my lifetime that loved it, and they were great. There was one in 1999 that said, get them off. They're $100,000, basically, traffic lights. Growing up here, I have to admit, I was one of those people that loved them, right? I just loved having them there. But as I mentioned earlier, the last time we had a pedestrian hit was right in front of a cop directing traffic. They also cannot leave their post. They call in from their phone if they see a crime being committed. When the jewelry store was robbed a few years ago, one of them, they called it in there. Now we have 6 patrol officers, and we have an undercover Orca unit there. All right, as you've probably been reading in the paper, every time we've had somebody get robbed there, we've caught them. Now we have cameras there. We have modern policing at its best. But what's great about these police officers on bikes is they go up to 40 miles an hour. They actually check on us twice a day, at least twice a day in town hall, and they go right back over there. They engage the people in this town, right? They don't just sit there waving and yelling and whistling, right? And they hated being there. It is the biggest waste. Every former first selectman I spoke to, and every former chief, including the present chief, did not want to do this, but they always had a political backlash. I said, when we get in, we're going to get this done by showing people what we're giving the town, not taking away. If the narrative is you're taking away officers, you just heard it tonight. He took the officers off the avenue. They're not there. That's not true. There were 2 for 7 hours a day. That's it. DPW did a study that said the biggest traffic for pedestrians is after 4 o'clock. There was nobody there. On Sunday and Saturday, bigger traffic, pedestrian traffic, they weren't there. But now we have, those bump outs are 24 hours. But we have 6 cops there, and they're engaging people, and they're stopping crime.
Time. Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, the police are once they're taken off, they're never coming back. So they're not coming back to the avenue. So we have to look at and find a solution. We have increased traffic. It's dangerous. Lunch hour is bad. Christmas is coming up. We're going to have a lot of heavy traffic down there on Greenwich Avenue. We have to come up with solutions. We can't just say, I put the cops on bicycles and leave the traffic. Whatever happens, happens. We have to find a solution. So I actually talked to Chief Heavey about a solution, which would be bringing school crossing guards or special police in there at certain times. And I'd have the school crossing guards or I'd have the special police there, probably during the Christmas season, during certain lunch hours. And we figured out what the worst times are, and we'd provide some coverage there at the intersections so that it would be safe during those particular times. So we have to find solutions to these problems. So that's all I have. I know I have a minute left.
That's
but
okay.
I'll cede it to somebody. There's
We'll
just
catch
so
up.
much you can talk about.
Fred, 30 seconds?
Well, I don't know what chief you spoke to, because the chief told us right off the bat, was the first thing I said 2 years ago, is why can't we put some crossing guards there as civilians? You can't do that right now. There's unions, unfortunately, it's something we could work on, and absolutely you could. But at the end of the day, what we're doing right now, if you go on the avenue, and I'm there every single day, I don't just hear about it, I go there every day. I walk from here to town hall. We have the guys getting off the bikes, and they actually do go there in direct traffic. They see a lot of cars there. I've seen them every day.
Thank
So
you.
they are able to be
Thank you.
flexible.
I
Next subject is finance. Under the pay-as-you-go finance policy, the town sets aside and invests reserves for future needs. But to address large infrastructure projects, the towns sometimes borrow. Do you support long-term bonding for large projects? And if so, how would you determine the amount of debt we should have outstanding at any one time? Bill?
Sure, I served on the BET, and we actually do long-term bonding for Nathaniel Witherell, and we also do it for the sewers. So if we were going to do a major project, certainly with the treasury rates at 2.1 for 20-year treasury bills, treasury bonds right now. This is not the 1980s when the treasuries were 15%. They're 2%. So yes, you would have some long-term for a major project. But again, that's treading on the BET territory. We have a fabulous controller in Peter Minarski, and I'm sure Peter Minarski can come up with the ways that we can finance certain projects. We're not going to raise taxes. Everybody says, oh, long-term debt, and you're going to raise taxes. We're not raising taxes. I pay taxes. I'm not raising taxes. I may cut your taxes. We have $69 million in the rainy day fund, $69 million. We're getting $32 million from the federal government. The plan, the guidelines set for this year provide for $70 million in capital expenditures. That's $170 million for capital projects. It's not the financing that's the problem, it's the priorities. We have to get our priorities straight. We cannot be cutting the ribbon on Greenwich Avenue for bump outs while Central Middle School has monitors on the side of their building to see how far that building, the wall, is moving. We can't. We got to establish priorities. We got to do it now. That's all I got.
Fred?
Well, if it was, I believe Central is the #1 school that should be knocked down, but I don't set the priority. That's the BOE. Why did the Board of Education push it out 11 years? And again, if you keep talking about the BET, you're running for the office of First Selectman. You're not running for the BET. And as far as priorities, I mean,
But I actually served on both, so I understand them.
Yeah,
Okay, I understand the BET.
One at a time.
Okay, well, the question again was, I'm sorry.
Okay. Do you support long-term bonding for large projects?
So I served in Hartford. I saw Hartford was well run 100 years ago. It was actually one of the best run cities and the wealthiest city. Long-term bonding, long-term debt is not a good thing, right? We saw what happened with a lot of cities and and some of our neighbors, right? So I don't support that. When I was on the Parks Board, we acquired the 2/3 of the Tuckman Pomerantz property. So we did a modified pay-as-you-go. I think it was a 5-year note. We paid it off quickly. That I'm open to. We do have some long-term, as my opponent said, that's dedicated to a couple, Nathaniel Witherell in the sewers. You got to be very, very careful. That was a big issue 2 years ago about that. But certainly, when we're going over the capital budget right now, my priorities are public safety, schools, public health. It's not just one or the other. And again, you could only do one school at a time. And I don't want this to be partisan, right? We're all here, and a lot of the BET members, I know one side keeps getting attacked by my opponent, but I could sit here and say the feasibility study for Riverside was cut by the Democratic BET members, but that's not what everybody's here for. They're here for your vision, right? And yes, my record is open, right? As I said, as Bill Parcells says, you are what your record says you are. I'm running on my record and my vision. But I'm not going to keep deflecting and going over about the Democratic BOE members or the Democratic BET members. It's not fair to the audience here.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciate it. Bill?
The BOE is, I believe, united. It's the Republican-led BOE. They're the ones who make the proposals. They're the ones who proposed a study of Central Middle School last year that was turned down by the BET. And no, you don't get a vote in the BET, but you do use your bully pulpit. You do get to prioritize. You do get to say, that should come first. This should come second. That's what you need to do. That's what we need to do as First Selectmen. We need to go and appear in our bully pulpit. Oh, my time's up?
Fred?
Oh, that's right.
This was just a
Didn't
rebuttal.
I get reserved from last time? No? All right.
I'll give him 20
No,
seconds.
it's all right.
It's not cumulative.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
Fred, if you'd like to respond,
Yeah,
30 seconds.
Yeah, I do. I work well with both parties and the BET, but yeah, it's not a dictatorship. I asked them last year to give me 1.25 million for Roger Sherman Bowling Park. They said, no, it's a great idea. Come back next year. And we've come back next year. We're going to come back this year with an even better plan for it, with some help for it. But it's not a dictatorship. Our government is set up in a way where you have checks and balances. Anybody who thinks they can run roughshod over somebody is going to be in for an awful hard time. Just ask Governor Malloy. Not Lamont,
Okay.
Malloy.
All right.
Do I go again or
We're-
no?
Not on this
I
question.
thought I'd confuse them.
Not on this question.
All right.
I'm very organized.
I know, I understand.
The town will be receiving about $32 million in COVID relief funds under the CARES Act. What are your priorities for these funds in terms of infrastructure, schools, or other projects? How will it be determined which town projects will be funded with this money? Fred.
Thank you, John. I set up a committee that was actually, we're working on this right now. We wanted to make sure we did not violate the spirit and the intent of what the federal strings are. So we have the first tranche already. We have about 15 million right now, and the second one is like another 15 or 16 million. Things like air quality, infrastructure. We'd love to put a lot of it towards the sewers and, anything to help with the flooding. But we're also doing a big study on the task force we put together that meets weekly on flooding. And I got to tell you, it's like spitting in the ocean. It's not going to make a dent in that one. But there's certainly a couple things, smaller items that we could use with that money to fix some of at least alleviate and mitigate some of those flooding issues. But some mental health things, issues and programs, some of the nonprofits, right? We would love to put a lot more of that into the capital, but you'd be surprised how quickly that goes. But we're going to spend every penny of it, but we want to make sure it's spent well, and that it has long-lasting and sustainable effects, and that it does not violate anything that comes with the strings attached from the federal government.
Bill?
The schools.
Okay.
The schools. Let me be very clear.
Schools.
We're going to fix the schools. Yes, we're going to take care of the infrastructure as well. They're going to be long-lasting capital projects. So we're going to take that 32 million and we're going to use it appropriately to fund projects that will last for 75, 100 years. That's what we're going to do. And we'll form a committee and we'll go through the issues and we'll go through what's available. And we'll also look at what's available for the town. And together there'll be plenty of capital to get the projects done appropriately without raising the taxes. So that's it.
30 seconds if you'd like, Fred?
Yeah, and we're absolutely focused on the schools too, but you can only do one at a time. So when you say schools, you can only do one at a time. So just keep that in mind. And again, schools aren't the only thing. We have infrastructure, we have public safety, we have public health. We have our park system to take it. We have everything. People move here for a reason. It's all these things, and schools are right up there, but you can only do one at a time. But we're going to be focused on it.
Bill?
Why this mentality of we can only do one at a time is beyond me. We can do them sequentially. We can get them started. We can get them rolling. We can get the design funds. I mean, we have Julian Curtis lined up with a 1.7 design, do the specs. Central Middle School, you're even saying now we've got to replace it, we've got to fix it. We haven't even done the study on the curtain wall. We've got to do the study on the curtain wall to find out what's going on, why there's monitors on the side. And we've got to go in front of the BET and get the money. So anyway, that's where we are.
Okay, we're more than halfway through. A few more questions. The next one is under the category of new normal. While COVID may be slowly coming to an end, it is possible that some of the lifestyle changes may be here to stay. COVID has impacted many small businesses on the avenue and around town. How will your policies help local businesses rebound from the COVID shutdowns and the reductions in business? Bill?
I will fix the parking in downtown Greenwich. That's how it'll fix it down there. That's the big issue. The outdoor dining is here to stay. It's very good. It's popular. Mr. Camillo made a mistake at the start. He closed down the lower part of the avenue, which was very destructive to the businesses down there. Cars could not gain access. I will make sure that stays open, traffic flows. We will also create availability of parking. And creating availability of parking is not passing out little flyers. It's actually coming up with a system where people know where to park. Parking is available. We have these dedicated spots all over downtown Greenwich that I see that are empty and unused. And we need to get them into the actual availability for citizens to go there and park there. We can solve the problem.
Fred?
So yeah, parking was one of the things that I said we wanted to tackle. Even when we said we're going to do these bump outs and some of them took away a couple spaces, the next one scheduled, Art Street actually adds parking. But we have opened up, because of the problem of the decades-old problem of meter feeding by employees on the avenue, we opened up a couple hundred spaces in municipal lots at a discount to them. And I think I may be off on this, maybe it's a little bit more, but at least 126 have taken advantage of that. So that's 126 spots that were opened up. You gotta have to think outside the box because we don't want to see standalone ugly parking structures going up. If you do a parking structure, you'd want one like we have here at Town Hall, which is built into the grade, or like our plans to build into the grade on ramps of 95, right? And put green space on top. That's out of the box thinking. And we're doing that. We're creating parking. And when with all due respect, when my opponent says Mr. Camillo made a mistake, I make lots of mistakes, and you can't be afraid to make mistakes. But we were facing a pandemic. We had no one. There was no manual on how to do this. So we absolutely just talking about what did you do to help business? We waived all the fees. We said come outside. Right, and I was getting pushback from some people in the department head saying, we don't know if we can do this. We did it. And Ned Lamont, his own words, bragged about it on his daily press conferences all the time. He still does. He loves it. We were one of the first ones. As I said a few weeks ago, a very successful mayor called at my office in June and said, how'd you guys do it so quickly? We've been doing it in a month and a half at that point. So we're absolutely, we're working with them to try and keep them out there all winter. Some of them did last year, but there's other things like dining domes where they could even make it even better, a better experience. But absolutely, parking has been a problem since before I was a little boy, and there's a lot more work to do. But Lauren Rabin and I have done put a lot of time in that. We're going to continue to focus on that.
Thank you. 30 seconds, Bill.
If you had consulted with the merchants on Lower Greenwich Avenue before you blocked it off, there would be no need for an apology because they would have told you you can't block it off because you will kill our businesses. So less apologies, more planning.
There was no apologies at all.
You just said there was an apology.
No, I did not say. I didn't. If I said an apology there, we'll roll the tape. I don't think I said
you made a mistake. Don't you apologize
I said
when
I
you make
make
a mistake?
mistakes all the time. Obviously, you don't, sir. But
not lately. No.
Well, that's real humble.
Okay, next.
Can I finish the? All right. We had a public hearing.
That's time on
and
that.
I listened to the merchants, and that's why we opened them up, and they were very happy. And I have a big letter
we have to move
show
on.
my opponent.
I'm sorry for this strict format, but we have to hold to it.
Very tough taskmaster.
The last question, the second to last question is on the subject of schools. No, I'm sorry, there's one before that. Luckily, restaurants have flourished with outdoor dining, so we can talk about this a little bit more. Do you support the continuation of outdoor dining? Would you seek ways to improve upon the infrastructure and the temporary dining structures that were there and make them permanent? That goes to Fred.
Yes, we're meeting with them all the time. I visit them. I'm a customer, so I hear it all the time, complaints and praise for what the town has done. And I give the town the credit, not myself. They really worked hard to get this done. But I mentioned before, we're talking about, if it's January 5th and the restaurants, it's cold outside and the restaurant's full, having those domes, they could be kind of cool looking, different types. They're open to that. And at first the state didn't allow it. And I called David Lehman up, who did a great job running the COVID operation for Governor Lamont. And he said they were a little nervous because of the air quality at that point. But we kept in dialogue, and we said, New York's doing it, places in Europe, and they modified. They adjusted their policy just like we did on the Avenue, right? And that's what you do. That's what leadership is. You listen. If you listen, you can lead, you can learn. And if you learn, then you can lead. Listen, learn, and lead. And that's what we did. And I think the outdoor dining, I'd like to see it go to other parts of town where we're set up meetings. We've had meetings and we're talking with restaurateurs in other parts of town on that. Some have already done it, but I even pitched Coscob, where I grew up, the little one-way street in front of the fish store there across from Starbucks. And half of them all loved it, and then they thought about it. They didn't want to give up the 4 or 5 parking spaces, so you have to back off. That's what they didn't want it. But I thought it would have been a kind of a nice look for people on the Post Road to see them dining outside.
Bill, on the subject of outdoor dining.
It's a good thing. I actually agree. I love to eat outdoors. The restaurants have done very well now because basically a lot of them have doubled their capacity. They have the indoor dining and they have the outdoor dining. And we have to figure out a blend here. We want the outdoor dining to stay, but we don't want to hurt the merchants with respect to the loss of parking spaces and access. So it's a continual dialogue that has to take place, and we could certainly make it a little bit prettier. Greenwich Avenue should be the hub, absolutely. And yeah, we have dining outdoors in Old Greenwich. We have it at the Fat Poodle, have it at Applausie. We have it at a couple other places. So those are just plugs. That may get me a drink. I don't know. Let's see.
All right. Why don't we move on to schools, where I was a moment ago, with an $800 million to $1 billion long-term capital plan for schools. What is your priority list for the renovation of schools? And this is starting with Bill.
Well, Central Middle School has a monitor on it. And if we don't fix it, it's going to cost us $21 million over the next 10 years just to maintain it, which is just, how do I say this nicely, idiotic. So we got to get to work. We got to first study the curtain wall, find out what needs to be replaced there or whether the whole school has to be replaced. But there's cracks everywhere in that building. I've toured it. We have problems all around the schools. I took a tour of North Street. They have a floor in one of their classrooms that's almost at a 45-degree angle in the last 2 feet of a classroom. It's sinking. We've got to stop cutting the Board of Ed budget on maintenance. We've got to give them the tools they need and then hold them accountable. It's very simple. If you keep cutting and cutting and cutting, you end up with monitors on Central Middle School's wall. So, yeah, Central Middle School's a priority. Old Greenwich Ed Specs were just approved the other night. Julian Curtis is right there. So how do you do that? And maybe you sequence them shorter. You're not going to do them all at once, as we agree. We've got to do them so that we don't bump the tax rate. And by the way, it was the Democratic BET that had a 1.4% increase in the mill rate when they got to run the BET for 2 years. That's an important fact. Half what the Republican BET raised taxes. So this raised taxes thing is just nonsense. That's all I got.
Fred, 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, the last 2 years was about zero.
Sure, you took 21 million out of the rainy day fund to get it to zero.
Well, I had I submitted at 0.86. That was mine. They went a little bit lower. But this was before COVID, but when my first budget I submitted. So, and this, if you want to be political, right, the town has
I'm not the career politician here.
I'm not a career, well, you see, there's another cheap shot. I was in the private sector most of my life. That's just a cheap shot and it's not needed here.
What do you do? Well, all right, well, I'll wait till my turn.
We're going to have one little surprise at the end.
You're trying to run for it.
At the end of this question, we're going to allow you each to ask each other one question. And so that will be the last question of the evening, which we'll start with Fred to ask Bill a question, and then Bill can ask Fred a question.
That's a tough one. Last year, when the majority party, last spring, tried to take over local control zoning, and now they're actually, since this is.
Question.
This is the road.
You're working up to a
Round Hill.
question?
Yes.
Okay.
Since this is a Round Hill, they're going after 4-acre zones now. If I missed something, correct me, because I was debating them, I was testifying, I was working with them. Did you say anything at all about their attempt to take over chip away at our control of local zoning? Did you? If you did, I apologize. I didn't see anything. I just want to know if you said anything.
No, Fred, I was not in politics at the time.
Okay.
I was asked to run. I've now committed to running. And no, I did not testify. And no, I haven't been. No. So I did not say anything. So the answer is no.
Okay. Bill, if you would like to ask Fred a question.
Fred, I know you've done studies on Nathaniel Witherell to turn it, to get RFPs. I haven't seen those RFPs. I'd like to see them. I know that we also have done an RFP on Lower Greenwich Avenue, and I haven't seen those. I know the assessments are done, and I haven't seen those. And I know that the $5 million gift was announced at the Board of Parks and Recreation on June 30th. And then it was hushed up and not discussed for 3 months until just before Election Day, when the $5 million was announced. So my question is, are you holding these documents for political gain? Or are you holding these assessments? Or are you making these announcements for political gain? Or is there a reason why you're holding them? Please explain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know. I never did an RFP for Lower Greenwich Avenue. So if I did, I haven't seen it either.
That's for the Island Beach parking. Is there an RFP there?
Yeah.
Don't you have
But
some
it's
submittals?
no, right now it's not a public document right now, but certainly the people I put on all these RFPs and these things to go over them are Democrats and Republicans, people that you know and actually worked with, some of them. So, and the task force for the air rights for Greenwich Plaza that saved our town probably $200 million, had just as many Democrats as Republicans on it. And those meetings were public. We've had, can't tell you how many Reimagine Greenwich and all these other committees, they're all public meetings. So when you say I'm hiding things, that's ridiculous. To accuse me of that, that's even lower than what you said before. I mean,
What did I say before? Oh, I'll let you finish.
No, and as far as we weren't sure. We were going back and forth. So if somebody said on June 30th at the Parks and Recreation Board, there's a deal. The deal is when it's signed. That's when it's done. It wasn't signed. We went back and forth. The Alexandra and Steve Cohen Foundation. This wasn't the only thing they were working on. And sometimes we put a couple calls in and we get a call back a week and a half later because they're working on so many other things. I didn't realize how many other things they work on. And so when you're asking for help and you're, seeing and there's a dialogue and they're open to helping the taxpayers here, I'm not going to sit there and demand an answer right away because I need to get an answer on July 30th because I don't want it to be too close to the election to get accused by somebody running for office that I'm hiding it for political. I'm too old for that. I'm too old for that. I am what I am. People know me here. I've been on the ballot 8 times. People trust me. If I was pulling stunts like that, it would have come out earlier, and I certainly would have done it before today and this time.
Gentlemen, thank you both so much. I know this is.
We're just getting going.
This is a very difficult structure. I hope you both feel that you got to express your views. I think you guys both did an excellent job. What we're going to do is we're going to bring up the select women candidates at this point. We're going to go through a few questions for them. And then at the end, you'll come back for a 1-minute recap of your closing statements.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Does that work for you?
Thank you, John. That's great.
Okay. All right.
We get to come back
So-
to 1 minute. Okay. Right. Take these down.
Okay. Okay. You guys both ready?
Not quite.
So we have about another half hour. We had 6 questions prepared as opposed to that last segment, which was 11 questions. So we'll get started. Lauren Rabin, Janet Stone McGuigan, welcome. Appreciate your being here. We'll start with Janet opening comments for 2 minutes. So if you're ready, please commence.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking the Round Hill Association for hosting tonight's debate. It's an honor to be here. And thank you to the audience for letting us share our priorities with you. You have the right to know where we stand on important issues, such as schools, sustainability, services, and infrastructure. And neighborhoods do matter. Each is special in its own way, and we want to preserve that. We love backcountries, hiking and riding trails. We love Augustine's, Conyers Farm, the Polo Club, Seton Reservation, Audubon, the list goes on. If elected, I will serve backcountry just as I will all of Greenwich. And with that, I'd like to introduce myself. Since moving to Greenwich in 2006 with my family, I've immersed myself in this community. Currently, I serve on the RTM, on the board of Community Centers, Inc., as a sustainer advisor for the Junior League, and until recently, on the boards of the PTA Council and League of Women Voters. I have degrees in civil engineering and economics from Cornell, and a master's in public policy from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. I have professional experience working as an environmental policy analyst and mediator on federal regulatory negotiations. Now I'm ready to take my service to the next level. This is what I'm trained to do. I understand the public process, and even though it can be challenging at times, I do believe that the robust outcome that results is worth it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rabin?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the Round Hill Association for hosting this debate. It's only what you give away that enriches you from day to day. This quote sums up my perspective on life and why I want to continue to serve the community that has given so much to my family and me. I have the great honor of serving our community with my classmate, running mate, and teammate, Fred Camillo. Our overarching goal is simple: to ensure that Greenwich remains the most desirable town to live, work, play, and stay, and that includes the backcountry. I want to highlight some of my accomplishments and my plans to continue my work and my vision. I chaired a Hello Neighbor campaign to check in on seniors during the early stages of the pandemic. Next term, I plan to promote all Greenwich has to offer as an age and dementia-friendly community. I streamlined board and commission candidate interview process, and next term, I intend to share best practices and develop efficiencies in how we serve our community. Being on a 3-member board, I worked in areas where my skills and interests aligned as to not duplicate efforts with my fellow board members. I'm just as committed to work on issues involving education, the environment, and our sense of place. I'm a team player and will be just as effective regardless of the makeup of our next Board of Selectmen. Greenwich is a unique and special place. I was raised here, and my husband and I raised our 2 sons here. As your select woman, I will dedicate myself to making our town work better for all of us. There are always challenges to meet, and that will require leadership, experience, hard work, and commitment, and civil discourse. I have demonstrated these qualities through my time serving our community in Cub Scouts, the PTA, the Alliance for Education, the GYFL, the RTM, the Board of Human Services, the Board of Education, and the Board of Selectmen, all the while working full-time.
Thank you. We've assembled a few questions from the public and from our membership, and we are trying not to repeat too many of the ones that were just posed to the first selectman candidates. However, this first one is a repeat on finance, and it goes to begin with Lauren. Do you support long-term borrowing for large town projects, or do you advocate for a pay-as-you-go policy?
Great question. So we do long-term borrowing. Both candidates for first selectman mentioned Nathaniel Witherall and sewer. So where it's appropriate and makes sense. I don't think it should be an overarching strategy when you have access to lots of cash. I think we've got a history of our nation overspending and incurring debt and getting into trouble in that regard. I think it needs to be a balanced approach. I also think past generations did not burden us as current generations. We have a lot of seniors in town. So I think about what our residents have done for us prior and what we should be doing for the residents that follow after us. So it should be the appropriate mix and pay as you go and modified pay as you go, and the appropriate long-term debt has served us well, and I would continue the current configuration.
Thank you. Janet, 2 minutes.
Sure. Well, no surprise. I'm a numbers person. I do think that everything should be on the table. Right now, while interest rates are low, I think we should look at what kind of terms this town can get and make the right comparisons. I don't think that when we have capital projects, we're building for 5 years or 10 years, we're building for much longer. And so it doesn't necessarily make sense that you have to pay off that project in a 5 or 10 year period. I think that we can go longer. Again, we just have to look at what the numbers say. And there is a question about who pays. Do we ask seniors to pay now? Do we ask families to pay later? I think we have to balance those needs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lauren, if you'd like to respond, 30 seconds.
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. So, onto the downtown area. Busy and bustling Greenwich Avenue isn't only helpful for small businesses and restaurants, but it helps to build a vibrant community. What ideas do you have to bring people to the downtown area for both social and commercial purposes and support the local businesses? Janet.
I think downtown is great. I think what I'm hearing the most, though, is concern about traffic and parking and general safety. I do have to question whether our Greenwich Avenue is safe enough. My sister-in-law was visiting from California and was almost hit by a car. So I know from personal story that there's a lot of concern out there. I think that, as Bill already mentioned, we have ideas about bringing crossing guards or special police back, because I think that will do a lot to calm the avenue. There's a lot we can do with parking as well. There's not going to be a single solution, but if you look at some of the municipal lots, there's spaces that are still available, which means that we probably don't have the pricing quite right. We're not matching demand and supply.
Thank you. To you, Lauren.
Great question, since I do chair the Reimagine Greenwich Committee, and our mission was to bring people back to Greenwich Avenue during the pandemic. Some of the cost things that we accomplished was the Free Music Fridays, where we had musicians play, and they actually wound up getting paid opportunities from that. And we had residents and employees be able to enjoy, music and catch some lunch. Parking is totally an issue, and it's not just a handout, as Fred's opponent mentioned. We need to let a lot of our new residents know that there are these 12-hour lots. Everyone is looking for convenience, and certainly there are people who need the convenience. We have folks that might be needing some accessibility. So we thought it was a way of promoting for people who are new to town that we have over 1,000 12-hour parking spots. Agreed that they're not all taken, because maybe people don't realize that they're there. Another thing that we talked to merchants about is, the restaurants are booming, but we're not necessarily getting the retail traffic. And that could be for a lot of reasons, people not feeling comfortable shopping in stores, Amazon delivering items. But some of the feedback that we've heard is, they want stores to be open later. So how do we work with the Chamber of Commerce and merchants to maybe adjust their hours? With respect to safety and the crossing areas, working with DPW, they are doing a survey as to what Greenwich Avenue should look like. And one of the ideas that we had was maybe the historic sort of old-fashioned traffic lights, because pedestrians keep crossing and it's hard for cars to understand how do you go in a three-way stop because you never know which way the pedestrians are.
Okay, thank you. Janet, if you'd like 30 seconds to continue this conversation?
Thank you, but I think I'm good.
Okay. All right. On the subject of traffic, a little bit more, GPS-enabled driving apps like Google Maps or Waze are changing traffic patterns throughout town and especially in the backcountry. Our roads are narrow, curvy, and hilly. How will you protect our residents whose roads weren't built to carry the amount of traffic that is now being routed through some of these as cut-throughs? Lauren.
Yeah, that's another great question. I remember when we first came into office, we had this idea of doing workshops to hear from the public, and that was one of the first things. I think it's Pork Chuck Road where a lot of people are being directed. One of the things that we thought about was working with the technology providers and making sure that there was some ways of capturing, this is not, good for a semi truck. Another thing is enforcement. So, we have even in Byram, I know this is a backcountry discussion, but even Byram on Delvin
Greenwich.
Avenue, it says no through trucks, and they're constantly, going in two ways. You could barely, get by. So there is an element of enforcement and awareness. Working with Chief Heavey, we created an email address called trafficmatters@greenwichconnecticut.org, and we also added traffic to the Access Greenwich where people can indicate issues. So it's just an awareness, and then it's also enforcement is my thought.
Janet?
Absolutely.
If you want me to reread the question?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Lauren took my answer. I think it's all about enforcement. I definitely know the traffic that you're talking about. I am so familiar with Riversville Road. Both of my sons were Eagle Scouts. I can't tell you how many trips we made to Seton Reservation or Audubon. And yes, there's definitely traffic that's going too fast for those roads. And it really is all about enforcement. And I'll quote my running mate, why have rules if you don't enforce them?
Okay. Next subject, next question.
We could do the next question.
Okay. On schools, should there be more collaboration between private and public schools, given that private school parents pay taxes but don't have use of the public schools to educate their children? Janet.
Well, there already is collaboration. The town pays for busing for both public and private already. We share fields. There's definitely townwide initiatives that look at both public and private students and bring them together. I'll use an example that I thought was great. This goes back a while to my first experience on the North Street PTA, but there was green schools in town that brought together public and private schools and looking at ways that we could introduce recycling. And those schools that are successful in implementing a recycling program have reduced their waste stream by something huge, like 60%. There's diminishing returns though, and definitely the town needs, I'm going to go off on my sustainability platform and say that we definitely need to support that effort more because we have 15 schools. Recycling in those schools would make a huge difference to this town.
Okay, thank you. Lauren, 2 minutes on that question. If you'd like me to repeat it, let me know.
Yes, please, if you can repeat it.
So it said, should there be more collaboration between private and public schools, given that private school parents pay taxes but don't have use of the public schools to educate their children?
Absolutely. We had a similar question, I think, in our last forum where I talked about maybe not so much the infrastructure because, yeah, we do bus for the private school students and we do share, fields and, some of the infrastructure, but also ways that we're dealing with raising our children and educating our children. I think that there's room for collaboration there. If you think about our youth today and what they're struggling with in terms of the pandemic, in terms of mental illness, depression, drug use, alcohol use. I know the committee was called Parents Together, but I don't know what it's called now. They did the survey and really got to understand, what was happening in youth in Greenwich, and it wasn't just a public school survey. So I think, parents coming together and collaborating and doing what's best for our students is totally healthy, and I don't know any parent that wouldn't be willing to do that, or any municipality or government employee that wouldn't also want to facilitate that.
Thank you. We have another question on taxation. What are your thoughts on how to manage the reduction to our tax base when exempt entities, such as private schools, purchase large tracts of land and buildings that are then taken off the grand list? Lauren?
Fee in lieu of taxes.
Okay.
So depending on, what they're using, and other municipalities do that, there should be some sort of contribution for what they're getting from the town. We have to pave the roads, we have sewers, we have all sorts of parks and trees and flooding to think about and infrastructure, so there should be some contribution. And it also is a detriment because a lot of the people that are not paying taxes are also buying up property for staff, and that property is deemed affordable. But you had the question before about affordable housing. We can't count it as affordable housing because it's not available on the fair market to everyone who would need affordable housing.
Janet?
I know this is a frequently asked question, and I definitely think this to tax schools or educational organizations, it's a slippery slope, right? Because then where do you stop? Do you tax Yale? Do you tax other colleges? I think it's really important not just looking at lost tax revenues, but to look at what these entities bring to our town, and they bring a lot. I'm a public school parent, but we want choice. We want these schools to be within our borders. And I would say that what we call workforce housing, the teacher housing that these schools provide, this brings diversity to our town. We want families of all shapes and sizes. So I think it's a good thing.
Okay, 30 seconds.
I don't know if I read the article right, how much of an endowment Yale has, and I'm sure New Haven would appreciate a little bit of that.
Anything? Okay, all right. On politics, today, independent voters outnumber both Democrats and Republicans in Greenwich. Some argue that these changes have led to more divisiveness in town. How will you address this changing base in order to welcome all points of view and bring our community together? Janet?
That's a good question. And not to be nitpicky, but I think you mean unaffiliated, because there actually is a party called Independent. So I think what we mean is that there's more voters who are not registered with any party than they are with either the Democrats or Republicans. I definitely think that as I've been knocking on doors, I've knocked on almost 1,000 doors. I am hearing that people are tired of partisanship. And I think as community leaders, we have to be mindful of that. I think we have to be willing to work together, put our differences aside, because at the end of the day, we're working for Greenwich. We're not working for each other. We're not working for our parties. We are interested in making life better for our neighbors. And this is why it's so important to be voting in this election. What happens on the local level is often the most impactful to our daily lives.
Thank you. Lauren?
Yeah, I was going to do the same thing, unaffiliated as opposed to independent. I know so many people get that kind of switched around. Yeah, it's listening, it's working across the aisle, it's making things happen, regardless of what party or, non-party you're affiliated with. Of all the people that we've interviewed for boards and commissions and committees, we didn't look at necessarily what anybody's party affiliation is, although you do have some guidelines. You can't have a majority, serving on a board. And, I'm proud with my fellow board members that we appointed, things sort of in equal numbers and, who was the most qualified. I also get a sense because, all of a sudden, if you're a Republican, you're one way. If you're a Democrat, you're one way. And I wonder if a lot of people just decided to go unaffiliated so they wouldn't be painted with a brush that they didn't want to be painted with, but still may hold some of the values that a party espouses.
Janet, any other comments? Okay, so we get to our last question, which is the same format we did with the first selectman candidates. Lauren will ask Janet a question if you would like to, and vice versa. So the first question goes to Lauren.
So it's almost a take on the last question that you asked us. So Janet, as hearing about you, and I know Janet and I know each other, but I'm looking at some of the messaging, and I get a sense that the team that you want to be part of, should you be elected, is just the Democratic team. And I'm just curious, does it matter to you when you get into office, if you get into office, who's alongside you?
Oh, absolutely. If that's the impression, it's the wrong impression. I'll just put it out there. I'm from upstate New York. I am from a very Republican part of the country, and I'm from a very Republican family. So I have friends of all political stripes. It's absolutely my interest in working with everyone. So.
Okay, and would you like to ask Lauren a question?
Sure. So let's project way into the future, and you're looking back at a long life in the public interest. What would you want your legacy to be?
She did the right thing.
Okay, well said. You guys were a lot easier than the guys. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now, if we could just call Fred and Bill back up, and then you ladies stay there. We'll just have 1 minute closing statements from each of you. And thank you all so much. This has been really informative, wonderful night. Janet, you can start with your
Well, I guess
1
we
minute
have-
closing statement.
Well, do we,
Sure.
you don't want to sit next to us?
We're making sure everybody's comfortable.
We can
Well,
do
no,
this.
your microphone.
we can
All right,
show.
Bill, I'm going to sit next to.
Lauren, you can sit right here. Yeah, there we go.
It's only 4 minutes, guys.
Okay.
It's not
We're
dinner.
showing that we
Alright,
get
so
along.
I'll get-
This is bonding.
Okay.
We'll get right to it, though. We can stick to a timetable. In closing, I'd again like to thank the Round Hill Association for hosting tonight's debate. I am thrilled to be running with Bill Kelly. We
Bill
are Bill Kelly.
Is it Bill Kelly? Okay.
I did say Bill Kelly.
Sorry.
That's okay. We want to keep our Kelly straight. We are honored to be part of an impressive slate of candidates. We have our priorities straight, and we are ready to work collaboratively and inclusively. While each of us is a strong candidate, our real strength lies in the teamwork we can deliver if elected together. But finally, Most importantly, I'd like to thank my family for their support and encouragement. My husband was born in Greenwich. He graduated from the high school, and he returned with me and our 2 young sons who, fast forward, themselves have graduated from the high school and are now in college. My husband and I would like to grow old in Greenwich, and we hope our sons have the option of returning just as he did. Like you, we have a vested interest in the future of Greenwich. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. Lauren?
I'd like to thank the Round Hill Association, Neighborhood Association again, and John. You did a terrific job as moderator, and certainly all the residents that submitted questions. I'm running for reelection to ensure our amazing, diverse community continues to thrive, a place to live, work, play, and stay. And I'm emphasizing stay so that seniors could age in town, so that our housing is affordable, so that our children and grandchildren can return home, and we don't lose more residents to more tax-friendly states. Maintaining our town's vibrancy requires experienced leadership, a deep understanding of our community and form of government. It requires appreciation and support of all of our volunteers, our elected officials, our town employees, and all of our nonprofits, and the ability to always work as a team and act in the best interests of everyone in our community. I commit that I will continue to do the right thing. That was a great question, Janet. That I will respect everyone that I work and serve with, that I will continue to take responsibilities, and Fred, I will learn, and if I make mistakes, I'll move forward. And I look forward to earning your support and trust to extend my service as your select woman for the next 2 years.
Thank you very much. Bill, to you.
John, thank you very much. We really do appreciate the Round Hill Association in holding this so that we can actually speak to the public. I've been married 40 years. My wife Barbara is here in the audience. I have 2 children, Elizabeth, who lives in Riverside now with my 2 grandchildren, and I have a daughter, Kristen, who's a medical doctor in the city. Greenwich has been very, very good to my family. We've lived here 30 years. I plan to continue to stay here. I have granddaughters growing up in this town. I believe I have an obligation when asked to put myself forward and see what I can do. And that's what I'm trying to do. The public can rest assured that I've worked well with Democrats and Republicans, and whatever 3 of us are elected on election day, I can guarantee we will work well together and we will provide an effective and efficient government to the town of Greenwich. And I just ask you one thing, please get out there and vote. It's so important to us, to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Fred?
Thank you, John. And I want to thank my opponent and my running mate and her opponent for being up here and having a spirited debate, and you, John, and the timers, and everybody here in the Round Hill Association. But most of all, the people of Greenwich, who have given me the greatest honor of my lifetime to serve my hometown the last 2 years, and do so at a very difficult time. Working together as a team, we got through the worst pandemic in 100 years, but came out a lot stronger in a more efficient and effective way, and made Greenwich an even more of a destination. And we had superstorms, and we had 500-year floods, but we got through it, and we're going to get through it. And as you heard tonight, we're not done. We have a lot more things to do, and we're proud of our accomplishments. But, you know, you have 2 things when you run, right? You have your record and you have your vision, and you just can't rest on what you did. So I just thank everybody again for the honor that you've bestowed upon me, and know that I would give 100% if lucky enough to get reelected on Tuesday. Thank you all. God bless, and we'll see you around.
Thank you, Fred. So with that, that concludes our program. I want to say I'm continually impressed and grateful for the high-quality people that come to serve in this town, both volunteers and paid. And the Round Hill Association thanks all of our viewers, our membership, and our community. That's it. Good night.